Hi there and welcome to this week's episode of Canadian Profits TV. My name is David DeBow and I am your host. What do we got in store for you? Well, we got three great segments. For our business breakthroughs, we're actually going to take a look at the book Driven by Robert Herjavec from The Dragon's Den and Shark Tank. And for our real estate tip, we're going to be talking about how to increase revenues with your current rental properties if you have them. And for our mindset minute, I'm going to take a lesson from a very sad experience I went through recently. However, it is a very good lesson to have. So stay tuned. All right, so for our business breakthrough, we want to talk a little bit about the book Driven by Robert Herjavec. I'm just going through this, actually just finishing up this book. Very good book, very easy read. It's Robert going through and talking about his big lessons in life and in business. And one of the lessons that he shares is about competition. And one of the statements that stood out for me is, he says, why create mediocrity when you can copy genius? Now, I don't know if that's accredited to him, but that's a pretty good statement. So he's talking about if he sees something that his competitors are doing much, much better than he does, he doesn't directly rip it off, like if it's a product or a service or something like that, but he looks at it and he sees, how can I implement this in my business instead of reinventing the wheel? Very, very smart. I firmly believe in that myself. So that's why I invest so much money in education, in programs, in courses, in books, etc. When I'm starting to do something, I want to find out who is the best person in that field and how can I learn from that person. So if I'm not able to go and actually work directly with that person, at least I can read their book, take their course, or what have you. It's done me in good stead. I know many, many, many successful people who do the same thing. It's a good idea for you as well. And like Robert Herjavec says, why reinvent the wheel? If somebody else is doing it really, really well, copy and duplicate. Like our good friend Bob Molly says, swipe and duplicate, or steal and duplicate, or something like that. Bob has a good statement. Rob and duplicate, R&D. So that's your business breakthrough for this week. All right, so for this week's real estate tip, I want to share a little lesson that I just learned from our good friend July Ono and her husband, Steve King. And these are very, very successful real estate investors. If you're part of Canadian Real Estate Profits, you read July Ono's articles every month, and she's been writing for us since day one, way back in 2006 when it was the Fast Track Inner Circle. Anyhow, an interesting idea that I got from Steve, actually, when we recently had a meeting, is they have a lot of rental properties up in Fort St. John, British Columbia, where my brother and I also have a sixplex up there. And we're looking for ways to increase the revenues in our sixplex. An idea that Steve shared with us was having some of our units as furnished units. Now, I've heard of that before, but I didn't really realize the impact it could have. And Steve was sharing with me that an average, let's say a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment that they rent, if it's unfurnished, they will rent it for $1,000 a month approximately. And that same unit, furnished basically, was getting $1,400 a month in rent. That's a 40% increase in rent. And so Steve was up there recently, and Steve and July were up there recently, and he was looking around at some of these furnished apartments that they have. There was one that was vacant. He looked at it and it was pretty plain vanilla, pretty plain Jane. So he actually went out and he just bought some basic pictures, a few flower vases, a few little knickknacks, things, a throw rug, a few things like that to improve the place a bit. And it went from renting for $1,400 a month to renting for $1,500 or $1,550 a month, just with a $200 increase in furniture that he provided for the place. So that's a very, very good thing to think about, to consider with your own rental properties. If you have several rentals, is there a way that you can turn one of them or one or more of them into furnished suites, and can you get a significantly higher cash flow from doing that? And remember, especially when you're getting into apartment buildings and that sort of thing, commercial buildings, the value of the building is based upon cash flow, net cash flow. So if you can increase your cash flow on a unit by $200, $300, $400 a month, imagine what that does to the value of your property. That's your real estate tip for this week. Okay, and for this week's Mindset Minute, I want to share an experience that I had from a very unfortunate event. Actually, my very beloved Aunt Evyline Hill just passed away a few weeks ago, and last week we had the funeral up in Fort St. John. Went up there, met with my cousins. She had 5 children, had the celebration of life, spread her ashes over the old farm where she wanted her ashes to be spread. It was a beautiful experience. It was a wonderful time to spend some time with the family under sad circumstances. But the thing that really came out during the celebration of life, during the ceremony, all 5 of her children got up and talked about what their mother meant to them. And between them and between all of the people that we met at the reception afterwards and everyone who was talking about my Aunt Evyline, the real commonality that stood out was her smile and her kindness. Throughout her entire life, she always had a beautiful smile and was a very, very kind person to everyone she met. That really struck out for me because that was the biggest legacy, the big impact she had on people, was just being friendly and kind and having a good smile for everyone. So that got me reflecting and thinking I need to be doing more of the same thing myself. Might be something you can think of as well. When we're dead and gone, what will we be remembered for most? That's a Mindset Minute for this week. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Canadian Profits TV as much as I enjoyed giving it. What's going on? Well, a few things are going on. Our next Canadian Profits webinar is going to be happening on Tuesday, October the 16th, starting at 6 p.m. And our topic is a very, very popular one because it is your combination to Canada's free money vault. That's right. Your combination to getting free money from the government and from grants. And our special guest for this presentation is none other than North America's #1 free money expert, Chris Johnson. And Chris is from British Columbia. Everything that he's going to be teaching on the webinar applies directly for Canadians. So you can check that out at CanadianProfitsWebinar.ca. Again, CanadianProfitsWebinar.ca. Go ahead, check that out, register for that event. And if you're not available on Tuesday, October the 16th, and you're interested in this topic, go ahead and register anyhow, and that way we'll let you know when the replay is up. What else is going on? Well, exciting stuff. Fast Track Super Conference is coming up right away. I'm looking forward to speaking at that myself, but I'm especially looking forward to seeing our special guest speakers, and our headliner is none other than Robert Kiyosaki. He's going to be here live for an entire day. One of the entire days of our 3-day event is going to be focused all with Robert Kiyosaki doing live training. Now, typically to get training from Kiyosaki, you have to go to Scottsdale and invest at least $5,000 for one of his events, but this is a much, much better deal. So check it out at fasttracksuperconference.com. Talk to you next week.